Hi there. Thanks for watching this workshop. We're going to be talking about CVs and resumes in STEM. Although the information will be pretty applicable to any other field, it's just a matter of kind of conveying your best experiences to convince the reader of your CV or resume that you are the most ideal candidates for that position slash professional school or fellowship or scholarship. My name is Amy Fan. I'm speaking on behalf of the Undergrad Research Center as a graduate student mentor. And so let's first look at the difference between a CV and a resume. A CV could be described as the course of life of your professional experiences. It could be as long as necessary. It usually emphasizes academic and research achievements, so it's a little bit more professional. It starts with the education, and it could be used in academia for grad school applications, job applications, grants, fellowships, um, applications that require a little bit of more tailored information that is related to like more professional and academic positions. And so it's typically also reviewed by a person. On the flip side, a resume is a little bit more brief. It's typically described as a summary. There's 1 to 2 pages maximum most times, and it emphasizes the skills that you use on the job. So it could be extracurricular information as well. It's not necessarily just the academic experiences that you have. It, on the flip side, has education at the end, and it is used in government, industry, and nonprofit sectors, as well as many job applications require a resume. And so also it is typically reviewed by a computer first. One fair warning is that when you're converting in between a resume and a CV or vice versa, it's really important that you make sure the information transfers well, just because sometimes resumes and CVs have different formatting, and you need to kind of make that judgment call what's more relevant for a resume versus a CV. Specifically, a CV is a chronology of your professional experiences. You want to include as many as you could remember, have them in reverse order. And they're a little bit more static than a resume, but you are welcome to change them. You want to change them based on the job that you're applying for. You can also change the length of detail over time, like adding more projects that you work on. Many people update them frequently, and there really is no page limit. A CV also should include page number and your name on each page. You want to have uniform headers, uniform in a sense that it's like the same font and size. These are some headers that are very popular: education, publications, research experience, teaching experience, leadership experience. You would also want to have a section for honors, awards, professional societies that you've been a part of, as well as any research presentations that you've done. When you're listing these out, make sure you know that if it was a poster or an oral presentation. Another note to make when you're kind of sending out these CVs is that it's a good thing to kind of make it easy for people to find your file. So make sure you include your name, maybe the date of the CV, and as well as like noting that it's a CV in the file name. You want to also include your contact information, phone, email. Also, it's probably wise to use a professional and permanent email, not like one that you've probably had like from high school. Like maybe use one that's like professional and permanent. Also, sometimes when you're applying to positions outside of UCLA, it might be a good idea to make an email outside of UCLA in case one day when you graduate, your email doesn't work anymore. So it's always good to have one that's like professional. So when we're also looking into your CVs, we need to include your education. So that could be your college education. Sometimes people don't include their high school education because that's kind of like outdated by now. But you can also include your GPA, that's optional. In the CV, you also want to include your experiences. This includes research, the person that was supervising you, so like the PI name, the location, what role you had, teaching, outreach, what you did in those roles. You want to make sure that it's really broad where an expert in another field would be able to understand it. It's good to be specific with the projects that you worked on, but don't be too specific, like using acronyms that aren't defined or talking about things that like a general reader wouldn't be able to understand. You want to be able to really convey your competence and your ability to like see projects through rather than the actual technical skills. Those technical skills you can maybe like flesh out in maybe a cover letter if it is really relevant to that position you're applying for. When you're mentioning awards and honors, make sure you have the name. If you won or were awarded any money, you should include that. Explain how you received that. Maybe there were specific requirements that you were qualified for. Maybe you were nominated. Those are things to kind of sell and like highlight so that people could know that it was a competitive thing and like it is like a good thing that you got it, as well as something that not everyone else has. Maybe this would be something that highlights and sets you apart from another applicant. This is a really great part to really great part to really beef up any awards you may have. So one sample of a CV is my own. And so you can scan this QR code and it's like in a Google Drive that you're welcome to refer. But this was my CV when I was a fourth year UC student at UC San Diego, and I was looking for research assistant positions. And the top header is typically something that I really liked doing is writing the last revised date. And so this kind of shows the reader if this was like an outdated one or the recent one. It also kind of like timestamps the CV to kind of tell the reader if the information was relevant. I like to have a header of CV, my name, contact information, first the education. And of course, this is just like one template. So feel free, and also it's very encouraged for you all to look online for a lot of samples. But this was mine. I liked it a little simpler. And so I included my education, university education. I included here that I like studied abroad. I had some scholarships, I had honors, what quarters I got those honors. And then you can go towards more so like the media information, like any publications that you've been involved in. You can include papers that are in prep or in revision, but it's definitely probably best to like notate that like I did in the end and highlight your name, indicating like what position you had on the author list. An example of a research experience I highlighted was being an intern in a lab. So I had put that I was like a part-time lab intern in this lab named the pseudo lab. I indicated how many hours I worked per week, the dates I worked, the person that mentored me, the principal investigator, the research focus, and the projects that I worked on, as well as the techniques. This is quite a lot of information. It's not totally required, but the more you give in your CV, the better the reader will kind of grasp your ability to kind of engage with your experience, as well as kind of like it's another opportunity to kind of have like keywords showing that you did a lot in the position. And it's also like kind of nice to have because when you're going through so many jobs, it's almost like you're memorializing your experiences because it's really hard to remember exactly the projects you worked on. And so that's why we recommend you to update these as frequently as possible, because this is something that you can look back on when you're preparing for interviews. So they can refresh your memory on exactly what projects you worked on, who you worked with, and the techniques that you are able to do. Even if it's like rusty, like you could say that you've done it and it's like something that you're able to learn. You can always pick it up. I'm sure research has a lot of muscle memory involved in it. Something else that's really good to highlight is any teaching experience you had. And so, for example, I had highlighted that I was a tutor for this mentorship program at the university. And you want to also give some context for the organizations that you work for. So, for example, this org that I worked for, they helped specifically students that were low income and first generation. So that's kind of like the context that you can provide in your CV. You can also include any community activities, such as like coaching or like counseling within that field, as well as the references that could include like the people that you work with, as well as anyone that you would like to like serve as a vouch for your experiences. So a summary of the resumes is that resumes are usually in reverse chronological order, but they're usually edited. You can customize them for jobs. You can change the vocabulary for jobs so that they can be general. You can include bullet points with active verbs. You don't need any fancy formatting, and this really should be no more than 2 pages. So resumes are really brief and very to the point with your experiences. In terms of STEM tips, we recommend that you can keep your degree at the top. You want to list the research techniques that you have familiarity with. You want to include what languages were spoken, especially within the healthcare field, and you can include the scientific mentorships. So some final advice that we have is that you should definitely look around and see for multiple sources to get samples. Make sure you know that the reader is busy, so they might just skim it. So you want it to be clear, organized, and only the most pertinent information is highlighted. You should also like take advantage of like the writing center at your campus and also have your friends or peers look over to make sure that you have no grammar and spelling mistakes. You can also edit for specific jobs, but really keep the old version so that you can maybe save information in case it becomes relevant in the future. And again, take your time and keep them ready to be shared, since this is one way to kind of show your academic and professional as well as educational experiences to get whatever position that you're interested in. Okay, so that's all that I had to share. Thanks so much and good luck with your resumes and CVs.